Welcome to the Single Era Diaries, exploring the journey of a woman who hasn't experienced what it's like to be single in her entire adult life, and pretty much most of her teenage life too. Each episode will navigate the journey of finding a sense of identity, exploring the challenges of co-parenting, finding love of self and healing, all whilst tackling the complexities of the checkered landscape of dating and dating apps, meeting new people, and operating solo in a world that celebrates couples, marriage, and codependency. I am your host, founder of Nascent Media and newly single woman, Jade, and this is the diary of my single era. So, we're back for the second season of the Single Era Diaries, which in so many ways, to me at least, is kind of nuts, because the Single Era Diaries at the beginning of the year for me was not even anywhere on any plan. But then again, neither was being single, and I guess that's the whole point of this podcast. And so I wrapped the end of season 1 with my not being in the best place. Like, I wasn't feeling on top of the world. It had been a really busy and gnarly couple of months of just trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was single and doing the single thing for the first time in like my whole adult life. And so I'd spent a couple of episodes just really sharing, I feel like, my heart on my sleeve with the fact that I was trying to get to grips with being this single person. And so I'm a good few more months into that now, and I took the summer off, which was really needed, like so desperately needed. My daughter broke up from school, and it was really important to not only work on all of the different pieces of my business, which is my content marketing agency, and all of the things that we do with the production for this podcast and other ones, but to really spend some time with my daughter in this new world where I'm a co-parent as opposed to a couple. And so I guess that's where I really wanted to kick off this season of the Single Era Diaries, because having the break gave me the time to get to grips with the fact that entering this single era is not the same for those that enter their single era that are perhaps without children, are maybe younger. Just the whole parameters of what it means to be single as an elder millennial with a child or even children is just a completely different minefield to navigate. And the premise of what I was doing on season 1 was like first time dating, like how am I going to go back out there? How am I going to meet somebody new? And actually, the realization with taking some time off over the summer was that that is so far down the track. Dating, meeting new men is such a low priority in comparison and contrast to the things that I really need to work on. And I would imagine that this is going to be the same for any other person, any other woman that finds themselves in this unusual territory where you have uncoupled, either consciously or unconsciously, either of your own volition or not, but you're a parent and you're navigating the experience of being single and independent as somebody that has the responsibility for looking after a small human. And it was that processing and the acceptance of that over the summer that has really served to inform how the direction of the Single Era Diaries is really going to run for season 2. So I initially spoke about how I wanted to get into the psychology of dating and what do you need to have within yourself in order to put yourself back out there. But putting myself back out there, and maybe if you're listening or watching this, maybe you're thinking, actually putting myself back out there, like that's one of the things that I'm just not focusing on right now. And I get it, because actually, as fun as it can be to pitter patter around on the dating apps and to have a bit of a laugh, which I will get to in a moment, the things that I've been sort of doing for the last week or so in readiness of the show. But fundamentally, the focus for me right now, and if you're in a similar place as a parent, is to really get to grips with how to be a single parent. How to do that on your own, but also if you have an amicable relationship with the father or the mother of your child, if you're a guy listening to this, if you have a dynamic where you're still able to get along, it's figuring out that new dynamic and getting to grips with that before even really entertaining the idea of introducing somebody else to the equation. And so it was marinating on those thoughts, and also reflecting on, if you listen to the last episode of season 1, where I was like, I'm not ready to put myself back out there. All of that remains true. Like, to a large extent, I'm really not ready to put myself back out there. But it isn't for the benefit of other people. It's really for the benefit of myself and my daughter and my ex-partner. What we are doing, and what you might be doing right now, if you are in this unusual landscape of you've separated and you have a child together, and you're trying to navigate and metabolize and digest your own pain, because let's remember that separating and splitting, it is a real grieving process. It's a real, almost visceral, palpable series of emotions that you are experiencing day to day that you need to be able to process so that you can be the parent, and parents plural, that your child or children need you to be. And dependent on what the nature of your separation was, that can really impact your personal psychology in how you're able to show up as a co-parent, but also how you're able to show up for yourself. And so that really is going to be the essence of this season. It's going to be focusing far more so on what the experience is and how to make the experience as positive as possible when it comes to the whole dynamic of co-parenting, collaborating, and being a family in a very new format. I'm feeling right now in a really good place, having taken the summer off and having really explored some of these emotions that I was having. And I think one of the key things that I really wanted to explore for myself was, why am I even on these dating apps in the first place? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I even looking to introduce myself to anybody when I don't feel ready? And I had to really sit with that. And it took a number of days where I was just crashed and burnt out, and just feeling those emotions and exploring them in my mind and my heart as to, why am I doing this? And the honest answer is, it was about external validation. It was about feeling rejected and pain and hurt, as I'm sure so many other people will feel when you have the end of a relationship. There is, an enormous, particularly if you weren't 100% on board with the notion of separating, there's an enormous feeling of, I'm not good enough. What is it about me that this person didn't want? And that sense of rejection, the feeling of being rejected, can really do a bit of a number on us, for want of a better expression, where we are then looking outside of ourselves to feel better. And that was the one reason why I was on those dating apps. The other reason was really as a bit of like an up yours to my ex, because those who listen to the show will know that we originally had put out to the world that we were consciously uncoupling, and my understanding was that that was what was happening. We had grown apart, we've grown up together, one of us is doing one thing, the other is doing another, and then I found out the bombshell that he'd actually been sleeping with a woman that he had known for a number of years, thanks to her telling me, which was not so great. But the whole point of my going out on those apps, and this is really one of the things I had to accept over the summer, was I was doing that to sort of prove that I could get somebody too. I could go and sleep with somebody as well. But the reality is, for me at least, that I can't. Like, I'm not built in that way. And, there are so very many options when you go on these dating apps. If you are in the space that I'm in right now, where you are single, you, I'm sure, will understand that there's so very many options. It's literally like option after option after option after option. And I'm sure that if your head and your heart are in a space to enjoy that and to be on board with that, then fantastic. But if you're not, it in many ways does more harm than good, because you're presented with all of these options. You're looking for external validation, or at least I was, and you might be too. Like, you're exploring all of these things for you to help yourself feel better, but from outside of yourself. And I guess if you're around my age, late 30s, early 40s, and you're thinking, I've done a little bit of work on myself, I've done a bit of self-help work, you will hopefully know that external validation is not the thing. It's not the one. It doesn't come from outside of ourselves. It has to come from within ourselves. And so the recognition and the acceptance and the acknowledgement that I was not doing this for the right reason meant that I came off them for the entire summer. I didn't want to be on them, because what's the point? I'm not ready to date. I'm not ready to meet somebody. Actually, what I really genuinely want is I love being in a relationship. And in order to get there, in order to get to that place, it does mean meeting people. But in order to actually have something that is going to potentially bear fruit, you need to be in a place where you're emotionally available. And I think as I realised that, the penny dropped. And the realisation that the reason why I was evidently attracted to or going after guys who evidently weren't that into me is because that would then reinforce the belief that I had subconsciously, and the knowing that I had subconsciously, that I am not in a place to do this. And so I sat with that, and I got to grips with, well, why am I emotionally unavailable? What is that? What does it mean to be emotionally unavailable? And the truth for me, as it might be for you if you're at a similar stage of your separation journey and your healing journey, you might be emotionally unavailable right now because you haven't taken the time that you need to get to grips with the emotion and the feeling of grief that you're having in direct relation to the stage of the separation or post-separation that you're at. Depending on how long you have been in your former relationship, depending on the level of complexity of that, do you have a marriage that you need to unwind? Are there divorce proceedings? Are you meeting with solicitors regularly or lawyers in order to navigate the process of what goes where and who has what and what belongs to whom? Do you have a business together? Do you work together for another employer? Do you have a friendship group that is split over the way in which you guys have split? Has there been infidelity? Were there issues with domestic violence or abuse? There are so many variables that can contribute to the demise of a relationship. And if you're not in a place where you have readily processed that, where you perhaps have children and you're still trying to figure out the dynamic of how to separate your children's lives into two homes rather than one, then logic says that if you haven't processed those emotions, then in order to open yourself up to a complete stranger, or maybe not even a complete stranger, maybe somebody that you know but you haven't known intimately or to the extent that you would ordinarily when embarking on a romantic dynamic or relationship, it makes so much sense that you may be like me and you might be emotionally unavailable. And that was a true light bulb moment for me. It was that classic aha moment. Like, the problem isn't them. The issue isn't the people that I'm talking to. The issue is me. The issue is that I am avoiding what is needed and what is necessary to embark on another potential dating or relationship dynamic because I'm not emotionally available. I'm not ready to do that because I'm still using all of my bandwidth right now to navigate my life as it currently is, to navigate the emotions, to navigate the up and down. I mean, the ups and downs that I have are akin to the most awesome, like, theme park ride on earth. Like, it's serious up and down on a day-to-day basis. And if you are anything like what I'm like right now, then you will know that you need to pour your energy into you. And you need to pour your energy into the dynamic that you have, the new dynamic that you have, if you do need to continue that dynamic with your former partner. One of the really fun things that I have done over the course of the summer, just by way of research and readiness for this season of the show, is to really have a look at so many of the dating experts and the dating podcasts and the relationship podcasts that there are out there. And I've noticed a theme with so very many of those that are creating really fantastic, interesting content on dating and relationships and dating apps. The theme that I am noticing is that so many of these creators don't have children. They're not in a dynamic where they're necessarily navigating the new territory of family life in a new format. And so a lot of the advice that I have seen and have witnessed and have read is sort of finite way of black and white way of behaving and responding to other humans. And I really had to reflect on that, but also, I guess, the way in which a lot of these sort of relationship dating people, or people who are sharing their experience, aren't necessarily in a dynamic with their ex. So thinking about the conversations around sort of like ex-partners and how you would behave towards them, like go no contact is a lot of the advice that you'll see on the internet. Like, go no contact with your ex, don't speak to them, don't have anything to do with them. And that's not possible. When you're in a dynamic where you have a family and you've built a family together, you've created a family together, you've created a life together, like a human life or human lives together, and you've built a home together, and you're navigating how to separate from that, but so that there is some continuity and love that your child can see and witness and experience on a day-to-day basis. It's not possible to go no contact. It isn't possible to block your ex and to not see them again. It isn't even possible, at least in my own experience, to take the time to actually heal from your ex-partner, because unlike what may happen if you're in a dynamic where you don't share children and you separated, you split, whatever it is that's happened with your relationship, and you literally have, other than wanting to perhaps talk to them again, there's not really any justifiable reason why you have to talk to them again. That isn't what happens when you've had a family. I recognize that so very many relationships that do separate, that have children, that not every single split is amicable. I completely understand and appreciate that there are so many nuances in terms of why a relationship would end and what the cause of those could be, and then the dynamic between the two adults may not be an amicable one. I completely respect that. However, for very many people, myself included, that relationship continues on in a very, very new format after the relationship end. And irrespective of the fact that my now ex did participate in activities with another woman that were deeply hurtful and very, very hard for me to accept and to understand as to why that had happened, the reality, for me at least, is that for the good and the betterment of my daughter, it is absolutely vital for me to be able to process those emotions in such a way that it doesn't impact the dynamic that I have with her father. And so that's another theme that I really want to get into far more on this second season, the whole dynamic and the parameters and the psychology that's needed, not to date, but what is needed in order to strengthen ourselves when we are continuing and needing to continue that relationship and that family dynamic with our now ex-partner who might have hurt us. And look, let's acknowledge that even if there wasn't infidelity as part of the reasoning for a split that you might have experienced, the reality is that there are things that will have gone wrong in your relationship, or gone off kilter, or lost their pace, or lost their spark. There's something that has formed the catalyst for that relationship coming to its perhaps natural conclusion that might be sooner than you were perhaps expecting. But no matter what those reasons are, if you are a family like myself and my ex and my daughter are, that co-parenting journey and that collaboration journey is one that just throws up so many opportunities for self-growth and self-development, but it also throws up a number of quite painful lessons as well. And so I really will be getting into that far more on this season of the Single Era Diaries. So where I am right now, I mean, we're in autumn, unbelievably. I think the speed of this year has just completely blown my mind. I'm like, how are we in September again? That is insane. But where I am right now is having taken the summer off and, you know, just thinking about the whole co-parenting thing and the fact that I am emotionally unavailable. I continue to be emotionally unavailable because my emotions are being poured into how to make it work with my ex and my daughter. And what that's meant really over the summer, we've done lots of sort of tag team, sort of back and forth, my daughter occasionally staying with him and very often staying here, and then him being here whilst I go off and do something else. I go to the gym or go to a friend or do something. But we've also done lots of family activities together as well. And it has just been so great for our daughter to see that her mum and dad, like, we're still family. Like, we're not in a romantic relationship, we're not a couple, but we're still a family. And I can really see how that is really helping her actually to navigate the journey of this experience, that her dad is not here all of the time. And then there's also this sense of extreme gratitude, I think, to be completely honest, about the fact that we have that dynamic, my ex and I, that we are friends and that we actually get along far better than we did when we were in a relationship, which is really great, actually. It means that there's a lot less sort of disagreement and toxicity that there certainly was towards the end of the relationship. And so it means that my daughter is actually getting to experience a far more harmonious environment with her parents. And she's really, I think, starting to get and to experience the best of both of us, because as we're navigating this journey as we're both single people, and we're both her parents, she's really getting to experience, well, they seem much happier. They seem a lot less, frustrated than they were. And that's a very, very positive thing. And, if you're listening to the show, if you're watching the show right now and you're thinking, gosh, I don't have that. I don't have that dynamic with my ex. Or, we don't get along. Or we're in the midst of a really painful and messy divorce. Or I'm not receiving the financial support that I need and that I expected to have. Again, thinking about these sort of separations where there are children involved and a family involved and there's sort of lawyers involved and all of this additional stuff. You might be putting your house on the market. So, there's just so many different things. But if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I don't have that, then what I also really want to be getting into on this season of the show is how it's possible to reach that place. And so there will be joining me on the show over the course of the season various experts that will be talking about the co-parenting journey and the process of sort of going through the legalities and how to still get along with your ex-partner, how to deal with things like having consistency and continuity if you've got two homes, like what's the parenting style, what are the things that you think are acceptable that you would like to see continued in your ex-partner's home or your ex-husband's home. This is really a landscape that I have not so far seen when I've been looking out there for sort of advice and guidance from like podcasts, and a lot of it is very much centered around the experience of separating when you're single without children, or when you're single and maybe in your 20s or early 30s, which is a really different landscape. I think it's a slightly more complex situation when there are children involved ultimately, but also when you're a bit, older and a bit more mature. And I know, of course, that there's listeners to the show who have sort of teenage children or, adult children, and they're going through this separation after, a marriage that has been even longer than, the 16 years that I was with my ex. So there's so many different relationship dynamics that I really intend to explore on this season and to really discuss, so that there is something for everybody, no matter what stage of the separation you're at and no matter what version of separation you're experiencing. And so for now, the one thing that I will add is that whilst I was off the dating apps for the entire summer, I have been having a little bit of fun over the course of the last week or so, just in readiness of the Single Era Diaries Season 2 coming back. And I'm doing it in a completely emotionally unavailable way. I'm currently testing out having conversations with people using song lyrics. And the results are pretty hilarious. I mean, at least to me and my friends who get the screenshots of like what I've been talking about. But it's clear that there's so very few guys that are on the same wavelength, because I'm like, how do you not know the lyrics to like What Katie Did Next by Baby Shambles? I'm like, that's a red flag. Or how do you not know the lyrics to like a Taylor Swift song? These are, for example, the lyrics that I've been using. So it's been good fun, but it does just go to show again that I'm completely not in the headspace to date. And so, dating might come a little bit further down the track, but maybe for like season 4 of the show. For now, it will really be getting to grips with those whole sort of relationship dynamics and just sort of navigating the whole thing and getting some people who know a lot more stuff than I do about when it comes to sort of relationship psychology. So look, it's so good to be back. It's a slightly new format. I'm recording in my home studio today. There are plans afoot to actually get an actual studio, but that's all things that's in the works. For now, it's good to be back for season 2. I thank you so much to everybody that's listening and watching. And if you think any of the topics that I've shared so far on the roundup for what this season will be covering, all the things that are coming up, then feel free to share this episode with a friend or somebody that you think might benefit from a bit of the Single Era Diaries advice. For now, thank you so much, and peace out. The Single Era Diaries is produced and distributed by Nascent Media and executive produced by me, Jade. Podcasts grow by being liked and shared, so if you enjoyed today's show, then please be sure to like and share with a friend who you think will enjoy the show too. Subscribe, and if you have a moment to rate and review, wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, that would be super appreciated too. Thank you for listening, and peace out.